Hello, welcome to Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. I am meteorologist Brad Warner, and that snow system that we are expecting to see across far southern parts of South Dakota, southern portions of Minnesota. Monday night through Tuesday has been a little tricky to track, but I think we're starting to get a handle on it now. So let's go on and take a look. All right, and once again, we've got the split screen going on. So we've got our snow on the left and our precipitation on the left and our accumulating snow on the right. So we'll get this set and get it started. So we're going to start off the day on Monday, fairly quiet. A little bit of snow maybe across far northern parts of North Dakota, western parts of North Dakota as well, and then northwest parts of South Dakota. Not much in the way of accumulations at that point once we get the day going. As we step kind of through the morning hours on Monday and we get to about noontime on Monday, again, not a whole lot. Snow begins to pick up a little bit in the northern Red River Valley and across northern parts of Minnesota. Not a whole lot of accumulation yet, maybe just a little trace, little light dusting across northern parts. And then as we go through the afternoon hours and get into the evening right around 6 p.m., on Monday, again, you can see that snow begin to accumulate just a little bit across the far north, maybe an inch in some areas up there, but otherwise just a trace to maybe a half inch at most across the north. But we do see some stronger northwest winds filtering behind this cold front. And here we go, folks. Here's the start of that system that begins to pull out of the Rockies and move through our region. And we kind of kick it off with a little bit of snow and rain as we get to Monday evening around 6 p.m. Central Time. And so moving this right along as we get to around 9 p.m. On Monday evening, you can see that snow begins to quickly accumulate down here across far southwest, south central parts of South Dakota as we get a decent little band that begins to form. Now, I've kind of got the precipitation type overlaid here, so it's a little tougher sometimes with that to see just how heavy the snow is, but you can see there's going to be a little bit of a delineation between rain and snow. There's going to be that little quick turnover possibly across the south, and so that's why some of these areas out and through here really don't see any accumulation as we get around 9 p.m. now. As we approach midnight, Monday night, early Tuesday morning, again, some light snow or some light to moderate snow across the far north, and then some rain begins to approach southern parts of Minnesota by that point. And approaching 3 a.m., Tuesday morning, very early Tuesday morning, that precipitation begins to overspread a little more across southern parts of South Dakota, southern Minnesota. We got plenty of moisture getting worked up and in through that region. But again, kind of a mix of rain and snow across the south here. And that's why, again, not much for accumulating snowfall takes place early in the morning on Tuesday, but that changes quickly. Once we move this to about 6 a.m. Tuesday morning, and we begin to see that snow, all the rain is now turned over to snow across southern parts of South Dakota, southern Minnesota. You can see where that track really wants to set up and where the main band of snow begins to settle in. And so with that, we just kind of flip over to reflectivity just to give it a little better idea of where there might be some moderate or maybe even some heavier snowfalls at this point. This is 6 a.m. and at this point, I mean, we've got a narrow band from Sioux Falls, Mankato up to the Twin Cities and then into parts of Wisconsin that could be moderate at times if it does set up right. So your morning commute, for those of you across the Twin Cities area, Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. might not be that great. So you're going to want to allow yourself some extra time to get to work, or maybe you're working the midnight shift. You're going to want to make sure you let people know it's going to take you a little bit longer to get home possibly Tuesday morning as we're looking at 6 a.m. Now look at the snowfall map here on the other side and we get to 9 a.m. Tuesday and we begin to see that accumulation start to take place across parts of southern Minnesota, southern South Dakota. This could be a very narrow band, and you could see this kind of indicating that with this reflectivity setting up here. So any kind of shift in through here is going to make a big difference as to who's going to get the more intense snowfall, the better accumulation, the greater accumulating snow with this. So a very small band that's going to be set up with this, so it's going to be difficult to get exactly where this is going to fall. But we're going to take a look at this model and just kind of continue on and get a feel for what we're sort of expecting here through the remainder of the day on Tuesday as we get to that noon hour time frame. And again, look at that snow quickly begin to pick up or accumulate across southern parts of Minnesota as we start to see around an inch or better across parts of Minnesota as we get to that noon time frame on Tuesday. And then by about 3 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, you can see that snow again continuing to pick up here, where we're going to continue to see the accumulating snow across the south there. Whoops, sorry about that, as that kind of flips around there. And then closer to 6 p.m. time frame, again, that snow really began to picking up once again across the Twin Cities and northeastward. So it doesn't look like your drive home for a Tuesday evening is going to be much better, because this is 6 p.m. Tuesday evening, and we're still getting some light to moderate snowfall across the Twin Cities. We're getting some accumulating snowfall across there, so the drive home might not be that great on Tuesday evening as well. But the good thing is that as we get into the evening hours Tuesday in through early Wednesday morning, this system quickly moves off, but we do have some strong northerly winds out of this. Now, I don't really forecast much for Wisconsin, but it does look like they're going to be picking up some lake effect snow as we get to 9 p.m. and then midnight here, Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. We continue to see some accumulating snow across northern parts of Wisconsin and across southern parts of Minnesota. That light to moderate snowfall is just starting to make its way out and exiting out into Wisconsin. Then once we get to about 6 a.m. Wednesday morning, we can see most of the accumulations for our region is done. The snow begins to move east, and that's about all we have left. Now, one other thing I kind of want to focus in on as well, I'm going to leave the accumulations up here according to this model on the right, but what I'm showing now on the left is some wind gusts that are going to be expected as we go through the day on Tuesday. So by this point, everything's pretty much turned over to snow as we go through the day, and we've got some stronger northwest winds that begin to pick up across southern southeast South Dakota, southern parts of Minnesota, as this cold front continues to sweep southeastward. So as this snow kind of accumulates, we're going to be having some stronger northwest winds, 30, maybe even 40 miles per hour in some areas. So there is going to be blowing and drifting associated with this as well. So not a big storm, not a large storm in the fact of coverage. I mean, it looks like it's just going to be kind of in this little area down in the southern parts of Minnesota, but it could have a big impact just because of course, we're dealing with the Twin Cities and the population down there. And then we're going to be having some stronger gusty winds causing some blowing and drifting. So travel would not be great. It will probably deteriorate as we go through the day on Tuesday. And in fact, as we continue through the evening hours Tuesday and into early Wednesday morning, even though that snow moves out, the wind kind of hangs on as we're still dealing with 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts out of the northwest. So even as we approach Wednesday morning, the snow is gone. You might even see a little bit of sunshine out there, but it's going to be windy out there, causing some blowing and drifting. And what are we expecting for accumulation? Well, everywhere in the green here, which we'll just circle the whole darn thing. I mean, we're expecting about a trace to maybe 1 inch. Now, mind you, across parts of North Dakota, we're looking at some strong northwesterly winds as that cold front sweeps through. Thankfully, we've had some warm days, so the snowpack that's out there has kind of melted and compacted, so not really worried about that blowing around, but maybe some of this little light stuff here could reduce visibilities a little bit with some of those stronger winds. But then, of course, as you get down further to the south and east here, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches here, anywhere in the blue, so across northern parts of Minnesota, and then, of course, down across southern South Dakota, Minnesota as well. And then we have that tight gradient here. Notice the tight gradient as we're looking at between the 1 and 2 and 2 to 4 inch mark. So a little bit of a shift either way is going to make a big difference in through here as to exactly how much snow you could get. But for right now, here's kind of where we're thinking for the 2 to 4 inches, anywhere from Sioux Falls up through the Twin Cities, including Duluth, and then the North Shore areas of Minnesota, and then 4 to 6 across northern parts of Wisconsin. possibly just touching the Twin Cities. I've kind of included that just because there's that possibility, depending on how quickly these stronger bands set up, as to the potential that, you could pick up 4 inches, maybe a little bit more if it does set up right. And then, of course, across areas of the North Shore as well, just because there's going to be some little bit of wraparound going on with the storm system and just a little bit of lake enhancement there as well. But that's sort of where we're thinking. And then the possibly down here across the southwest, south central parts of South Dakota, where we're looking maybe at another 4 to 6 inches. If a nice little band begins to set up right on the onset, it gets kind of intense early. So if that does set up, we're looking at a little band, a little short area here of 4 to 6 inches or more down into southwest, south central parts of South Dakota as well. And beyond that, once that system begins to move out of the area, we're going to continue to have some strong northwesterly winds, particularly across Minnesota for a day or two as we get through the day on Wednesday and possibly into Thursday. And the other thing that's going to be happening is we're going to be sagging in a lot of cold air behind this. So a lot of Arctic air that gets settled in with this. It's going to get cold behind this system. So Wednesday, like I said, continued windy across Minnesota as we get into Thursday. Winds pick up a little bit out of the south once again, kind of across the region, including Minnesota. And then it looks like possibly as we get Friday night and into Saturday, maybe another system that could affect our region. So stay tuned for that one. And so there's your update with this storm. It took me a little bit. I'm sorry. I apologize for getting this video out. It took me till Sunday, but for one thing, the models have just been all over the place. It's been very difficult to try to pinpoint where exactly this is going to occur. We're still looking at Monday night in through mostly Tuesday, so we got a little bit of a time yet, but this is what we're looking at. A very narrow area across southern South Dakota and into Minnesota, and then eastern parts of Minnesota as well. So that track could adjust a little bit. We'll keep you updated as we see the models come in. And so make sure you not only subscribe to the channel here, to my YouTube channel, so that you make sure you get the very latest details, the very latest video updates, but also make sure you subscribe either to Facebook or Twitter, because I'll oftentimes upload videos, or not videos, but I'll oftentimes upload images and just sort of mention what my current latest thinking is on there. So make sure you take a look on there as well. And then we'll keep an eye on for next weekend and see what happens with the potential of that next storm beyond that. So, all right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody, have a good day.